Okay, we're good, Larry.
Okay, and do we have everybody on that's going to join?
We have the members on. Open the meeting, and then I'll admit everyone else.
Okay. So good morning and welcome to the November Board of Adjustments and Appeals. My name is Larry Otterbeck, and we are now in session.
Amy, Mike just called. I just talked to Mike on the phone, and he's trying to restart his computer.
Okay. We have a quorum, so we can go ahead and start, and I'll watch for him to jump on.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for joining. Today we have 5 applications on the agenda. The procedures for all 5 will be the same. Rob, I guess if Mike is unable to attend, if I can get you to read the actual dockets.
Okay.
So we will have somebody, either Rob or Mike, read the docket. Staff will give us a staff report. There'll be a round of questioning by board members to staff. And when we're done with that, I will call the applicant forward to the screen. When you are brought into the screen, if you could raise your right hand, state your name and address. Amy is going to swear you in. I'm sorry. Okay, all right. When we're done with swearing you in, you, the applicant, will justify your project, tell us what it is you're trying to do, and give us just. There'll be a round of questioning by us, the board members, to you, the applicant. And when we're done with that, I will call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the application, and then those opposed. Procedures are the same. You will be brought forward to the screen, raise your right hand, state your name and address, be sworn in, and tell us why you're in favor. And those opposed, tell us why you're opposed. There'll probably be a round of questioning by the board members to you, those in favor and those opposed. And when we're done with that, I will ask the board members if there's questions for anybody else, whether it's staff or anybody else in the audience. When we're done, I will close the floor, open it up for general discussion among the board members, and then call for an up and down vote. Okay. Board members, everybody, please make sure your phones are off. There's no distractions. Please make sure you keep your mics muted. Except of course when you're talking, and that will just help with the eliminate any distractions. Okay, with that, Amy, did Mike ever join?
No, not yet. Okay.
All right, very good. Rob, could I get you to read the first application, please?
Docket OC-20-013, a maximum floor area variance for an accessory structure. 2604 Stonefield Lane, LaGrange.
Okay. And staff, good morning.
Yes, that is me. Let me mute that mic and turn this other mic up. I'm working off 2 computers here. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I'm going to go in and share my screen here in just a moment. Okay. All right, so as Mr. Houchin stated, this is an application that's been filed requesting a maximum floor area variance for proposed accessory structure located at 2604 Stonefield Lane, LaGrange. The property is zoned R2 residential and is approximately 0.748 acres. This is an aerial view of the property outlined in red. This is just kind of a zoomed out aerial of it so you can see the surrounding properties. Again, the property is zoned R2 residential. Site history: on October 15, 2020, the Oldham County Board of Adjustments denied an application requesting a maximum floor area variance For the proposed accessory structure, that was docket OC 20010. The applicant is proposing a 1,200 square foot detached garage with a 720 square foot roofed open area breezeway for a total of 1,920 square feet on the property. Per section 250.030 item B, the total maximum floor area for accessory structures for lots between 20,000 square feet and 0.99, it should be 0.99, not 0.99, 99 acres is 1,200 square feet, and the maximum number of accessory structures allowed is 2. The total square footage is 720 square feet over the allowable 1,200, and that portion is just the roofed area, the open area that we'll call the breezeway or the carport area. You'll see highlighted here on the image that was provided by the applicant. The area highlighted in yellow is the carport area, and that is the area that is asking for the variance. These were elevations that were provided by the applicant. And again, you'll see the areas highlighted in yellow are the areas that are requesting the variance. The covered open area will be for equipment storage, which includes a flatbed trailer and other lawn equipment, and additional parking area for the owner and use as future parking for the children. The structure will be constructed with similar material to that of the home, which is considered brick with stone accents. The applicant has revised their previous plan to include screening on the right rear portion of the breezeway section to screen the area of storage from the adjoining property. So these are the updated renderings that show the screening on the right rear section. So again, this just gives you an overview. You'll see here. Letters of support from all adjoining property owners and the homeowners association were included with the application. So you have that from your previous case as well as this one. According to the applicant's justification statement, the design of the building will fit seamlessly and effectively with the residents, will also increase the tax value of the property and property values of surrounding neighbors by keeping equipment and additional vehicles stored more out of sight and protected from the elements. So this is the property, the subject property of 2604 Stonefield Lane. This is the north view. This is the north adjoining property owner. This is the east adjoining property owner, which is across the street. This is the garage that the east adjoining property has. This is the south view. This is the south adjoining property. And you can see that property also has a detached garage located on it as well. This is the approximate location of where the detached structure will go. It will be at the end of the current driveway into the rear yard. These are the renderings that were provided by the applicant. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a variance in the total maximum floor area of accessory structures. The allowable square footage per the ordinance is 1,200 square feet. The requested square footage is 1,920. So the requested variance is 720 square feet, again, which is the open portion of the carport. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This variance that he's requesting amounts to a 60% variance. Is that in line with the history of the board and granting floor area variances in the past, or is it excessive?
Well, each application stands on its own, so we don't compare the other applications to the ones that are being presented. They're based off of the applications that are submitted with the justification.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll just add to that, that I don't remember, but that, not that it hasn't happened, that we've had a similar request in this neighborhood.
With Mike Riley's tutelage, I looked over the cases for the previous 2 years just to get a sense of how the board operates. And I couldn't find a 60% variance anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean there's not one out there, but I couldn't find one. That's why I asked the question.
I think the one last month was close to 60%, was it not? Maybe 50%?
That's the one where we just had the sketch instead of an actual scale drawing. Is that the one you're referring to?
Correct.
Yeah, I've had second thoughts about that one, but it's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage, but and I'll be more than happy to get that to you. But I don't know off the top of my head at this point.
That's okay. I don't want to cause you extra work unnecessarily. Thanks, Tom.
Amy, for the record, this was before us last month as well. Has the size changed since last month of the variance?
No.
It's the exact same.
The application is the same. The modification that was done was adding the additional screenage on the right-hand side due to the concerns of the board about screening from the adjoining property owner to the north or to the right. So the applicant revised the plans to put additional screening on the open portion of it on the right rear section. So that constitutes a change to the plans. The size is not changed, but they added that additional screening.
The screening and okay, very good. Here in a minute, I'm going to ask the applicant about the screening. Can you show me, go back to the pictures if you could, please? And just show me I guess the neighbor adjacent that this will impact. I believe it was the north.
So this is the northern property. That's the residence.
All right.
Let me get to the aerial.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
It is this 2602 to the north. So it is the area
Okay.
here. Not sure if you can see my mouse or not moving.
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can.
so it'll be here. It's approximately 15 feet from the side property line. So you would have a 15-foot setback, and then the distance of, from the property line to the corner here would be, I measured it just because you all had asked that question before. It's approximately 50 feet from the side property line to this point here. So
Okay.
you're looking at 65 feet in between the side of the structure and this area here of the neighbor's rear yard.
And could you show me a picture?
There is a proposed site plan in your packet.
Mm-hmm.
Could you show me the property south? I want to see that carport or garage.
So this is the property to the south. So this would be standing in the street, hit the property to the left of the applicants. So you
Right.
can see the garage here. And then this is the actual structure.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, you can go back to gallery view, please. Thank you.
Fred, to answer your question, from last month, the existing structure was 30 by 40, so 1,200 square feet. The applicant was proposing a 20 by 30 addition, which is 600 square feet. So that increase will be 50%.
Thanks.
And
Thanks,
Mr.
Tom.
Riley is attempting to join the meeting.
Is board member Funk, is he on with us?
Yes, Ron's here.
Okay, he's just not in my view, so thank you. Okay, board members, any other questions for Amy? Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, and Brandon, you're the applicant, correct? Okay, if I can get you to raise your right hand, state your name and address, and Amy, if you can get him sworn in.
Sure. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Just state your
Okay,
name and
Brandon.
address for the record.
Brandon Embry, I live at 2604 Stonefield Lane.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, if you could justify and tell us the modification to the application and justify that.
Absolutely. Like I said, my wife and I desire to build a detached garage that will house an area for a workshop, cars, a car lift, and some lawn equipment. The exterior materials will include brick and stone on our 0.75 acre residential lot in Stonefield Trace. According to the ordinance of Oldham County, we are limited to 1,200 square feet. The proposed building is 25 by 48 feet, which is in accordance with the limit of 1,200 square feet. Next to the building, we are planning to put a 15-foot by 24-foot concrete pad for parking, and behind that, attached to it and going the length of the building, will be another 15-foot by 24-foot gravel area for storage. In planning for this, we selected the site and design of the building to make sure that it wouldn't it would fall in line with all their setbacks and easements and would not encroach upon those easements and setbacks. I discovered that the Oldham County considers square footage to be anything under the roof line, regardless if it's enclosed or not. So this is why we're formally requesting the variance to include the covered area, breezeway, lean-to attachment, however you'd like to describe that, for under the same roof line as the building. The requested area is approximately 15 foot wide and runs the length of the building at 48 foot. The covered area will be open on 3 sides and will be utilized for equipment storage, as you said, a trailer and some other lawn equipment, and parking for me and eventually our children. And most importantly, to keep our driveway free of gridlock on a daily basis. Prior to drawing up the plans for the detached building, we contacted the Stonefield Trace HOA, let them know our intent to build a building and to request the process for plans to be approved by them. In the email, we included those samples that you saw from Amy, and to make sure that the style would meet the HOA requirements. The response we received from them was the style of the buildings looks fine, just ensure that the construction materials meet the deed restrictions, which it does. We plan to build it with brick and stone accents and some vinyl siding that would match our color and style of our house. They were all chosen, obviously, to fit seamlessly and effectively with our neighborhood. Careful consideration has been taken for the proposed project to complement the essence of Stonefield Trace. We have informed all neighbors bordering our property of the proposed project and the variance. All neighbors have signed a form acknowledging they have been informed of the proposed project and agreeing to the request for the variance. When I was informing the neighbors to the north, we took extra time to make sure they understood the impact it would have on them as far as they would be exposed to the open area, to make sure that to answer any questions they had. They had no reservations whatsoever of the proposed project or the covered area, and actually wished us luck with the variance process. While the covered area is open on 3 sides to air, the air is already partially obstructed from view by the fence that already resides there. There's a 4-board horse fence that is there currently. And with this variance, we have added a screen wall to further decrease the visibility a little bit more. That was one of the concerns that was expressed last time with this variance. So we wanted to do something to ease the mind of everybody that we don't plan on letting, having stuff just out in the open and visible. I also wanted to clarify the entertainment area that was included, that was in the previous meeting. This area is actually going to be used for parking and storage only. I was mistaken to include that entertainment area. I feel like it was received with the idea that there would be an area designated for entertainment with like TVs and furniture, ruckus parties and stuff like that, which couldn't be further from the reality of what this is going to be used for. This area will be used for parking and storage, and that's it. We feel strongly about the need for this covered area, which is why we came back this month and with the adjustments. We believe that this variance would helps the project fit more seamlessly with our neighborhood, our neighbors, and most importantly, Oldham County. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brandon.
Mhm.
Questions for Brandon?
One, sorry. Mr. Embry, do you have any idea how many carports are already in Stonefield Trace?
As far as I know, there are no carports. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure though, carports as that term separate from a building are not allowed. This covered area, that's why we have designed it this way, so it's not a carport. It's a reverse gable area to look very nice to fit in with the building.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the actual screening? I don't think I heard size and material and what it's going to look like and et cetera.
It's going to cover that back area where the storage is. It's going to cover that wall to again be more obstructive to anything that's stored there. So it will cover the height. So it would cover the 24-foot long area that's used for storage there. And it will run the height of the covered area there.
What is the height?
It should be approximately 14 feet-ish.
So the screening would be approximately 24 by 14.
Correct.
And what is the screening?
It's just screening to like you would use for any
A screen porch or something. Okay.
Yes, correct. That was the plan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Embry? Okay, very good. Thank you. Amy, I know we've got, I think 3.
Larry, you have Mr. Funk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
Can you hear me, Larry?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Embry as well.
Yep.
Yes.
On the screen, is it on all 3 sides of the overhang or just the one wall common with the property owner?
Just the one wall common with the north property owner, because that would seem to be the concern previously, is that we didn't want the north property owner to view stuff there.
So I'm slightly confused as to what the material is. Is it just window screen?
I mean, that was kind of our idea. If something more was be desired, obviously we would be willing to talk about that. Absolutely. But that was kind of our idea. Yeah.
So you're just looking for some measure of a filter so that it can't be so visible.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Embry? And board members, I apologize, but I'm trying to figure out how to pin your video on my main screen. So right now, flipping between board members, I'm flipping between 2 screens. So if you're raising your hand, I can't see it. So please speak up. Board members, any other questions for Mr. Embry? All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Embry. Amy, before I call those in favor or opposed, I know we got 3 letters of support. Did we get any other letters or of support for any of the other neighbors for opposition?
I think you had more than 3. It was from all the adjoining property owners and the homeowners association, from my recollection.
And the packet for this month?
Yes, there's 5. You have one from Brock Hutchison, which is across the street, one from Jimmy Ford, which is 2606. Then one from the Orms, which is 2703, Spring Pond, 2602, which is the property next door as well. And then 2707 Spring Pond Court, which is the property that's to the rear. So it's the people that back up to it as well. So all surrounding property owners received letters of support, as well as the home association.
I see that now. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of the application? And again, please speak up. Anybody wishing to speak in favor? I don't hear anybody. Okay.
And there's no, I can see everyone on my screen and there's no one speaking or raising their hand.
Okay, in opposition, is there anybody opposed to the application? Please speak up. All right, very good, thank you. Board members, questions for anybody in the audience? Okay, I'm going to close the floor for public hearing and open it up for general discussion among the board members.
I hate to be the first one to always talk, being the newest member. But yeah, this is not a freestanding carport, which would be prohibited by the regulations, but it's still a carport. And there aren't, according to him, there are no such structures in the subdivision. And again, I'm still concerned about the size of the variance. I can't support it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fred. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, I'm ready to take a motion on this.
I move to deny the application based on the size of the variance and the fact that there are no other carports within the subdivision. And I think it would be detrimental to the overall appearance and environment of the subdivision.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I need a second, board members,
Or the motion fails.
or the motion
Give Leonard a
fails.
second.
Mike's trying to talk. Mike, you're on mute.
Yeah, Mike, you're on mute.
There
Okay.
you go. Mike, you're on now.
Am I on?
Yes,
Hey,
Hear me? Okay. So there's a motion on the floor. Is that correct from Mr. Burr?
that's correct.
Okay. Has there been a second yet?
No, there has not been.
I second that motion.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion among the board members on the motion? Amy, could you do a roll call vote?
Bree is actually on as the clerk for the meeting, so she will do a roll call vote.
Great, thank you. Yes, Bree, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure, yeah. All right, Mr. Burr,
I vote in favor of my motion.
all right, Mr. Funk,
Against the motion?
Mr. Otterback,
Against?
Mr. Riley,
I'm in favor.
and Mr. Hutchins.
In favor.
Okay, the motion stands and the application has been denied. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the second. Mr. Riley, if I could get you to read the second
Yeah.
docketed item.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
You can, okay, very good. Docket OC 20014. An application has been filed requesting a minimum lot width variance for tracks located at 6130 Old LaGrange Road, Crestwood.
Okay, and staff?
This is me. Give me just a moment to load the presentation here. Green. All right, as Mr. Riley stated, that this is an application requesting minimum lot width variances for tracts located at 6130 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood. The property is zoned R2 residential and is approximately 2.231 acres. This is an aerial view of the property outlined in red. It shows the existing zoning and surrounding zoning as R2 residential. This is an area view that shows the drives and structures. There is no previous site history regarding 6130. The applicant is proposing to divide an existing 2.23 acre tract into 2 tracts to build a home on the vacant tract. The existing tract has a home located on it and meets the current setback requirements. The proposed layout is as follows. Tract 1 is approximately 1.126 acres with a proposed lot width of 130 feet. Tract 2 is 1.105 acres with a proposed lot width of 130 feet as well. This is the survey that was submitted with the application. Again, the property boundaries are outlined in red. You'll see on the right side, this is the existing residence with the garage here. And then tract 2 is the proposed lot of approximately 1.105 acres. Per division 060, the R2 residential district development regulations, the minimum lot width for tracts without sanitary sewers is 150 feet. Therefore, that requires a variance of 20 feet for both tracts. The total lot width is only 260 feet, so they basically are cutting it in half to have each one of the lots to be at 130 feet. So this is not to scale, so my drawing's not as good as Bobby's, but this is approximate location of the new property line. This is a picture of 6130 Old LaGrange Road. This is just in front of the trees. It's rather tree lined through there. So this is the existing home and the garage that was shown on the plan. This is the area of the proposed lot here. This is the west view. So across the street from Old LaGrange Road is the CSX railroad. So there are no homes located directly across. There are some on the other side of the tracks there. This is the north view on Old LaGrange Road. So this is going back towards the Buckner area. Oops. This is the north adjoining properties. You'll see in that site map in the bottom right corner highlighted in blue. Those are the 2 homes. The one furthest to the north is a new construction, which is this gray home here. But just so you know, that's why it doesn't show on the little site map there. This would be the northern property line. You can see the stakes, survey stakes there. So this just kind of gives you an overview. There's the survey stakes again, where the red arrow is, and the layout there of the acreage. This is the south view on Old LaGrange Road. So this is going towards Crestwood. You can see there's a lot of trees right here. This is the south adjoiner. When highlighting and doing the research for the presentation, this is the property to the right of the home. And that tract also has a lot width of 120 feet. That lot was created many years ago. I did not research what the minimum requirement was at the time of when that lot was divided off, but the joiner to the south does have a lot width of 120 feet as well. Again, this is the south adjoiner. Per the applicant's justification statement, there are nearby properties on the same road that do not meet the minimum lot width requirement. Due to the significant vegetation along the roadway, lot frontages are not readily apparent to a passerby, and the homes are only located on one side of the roadway because the rail line is on the other side. The proposed lot and home will add value to the other properties in the area, and the maintenance of the lot will be greatly improved. And finally, the proposal will not be a detriment to the public safety and welfare since there is adequate sight distance for the driveway onto a county road with a posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. So in summary, the applicant is requesting minimum lot width variances for both tracks. The required lot width is 150 feet. The requested lot width is 130 feet. So the requested variance is 20 feet. That is all that I have, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. You did say on the south, the south adjoiner was 120 foot. With what about the north? Also looked narrow in the. What is the north adjoiner?
They both meet the 150 foot.
Okay. All right. Other questions for Amy? Board members, please speak up.
Hey, Larry,
Yes.
I've lost video, but I have audio nice and loud and clear.
Okay. Good.
We see you, Mike.
Okay. Mike, do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Amy?
On the property to the one side that was 120, we have no history of that. There was any kind of variance on that. We believe then it likely was just grandfathered in before the rules required it to be more than that.
Correct. There was no documentation in the file or in the Board of Adjustments log or Planning Commission log for that property of that division. So there was a survey that was submitted and created that lot historically.
Okay.
Amy, do we need two variances for one for each side?
You could do two separate motions if you wanted to, or you could just do it as one as the minor plat as presented for tracks 1 and 2.
All right. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for Amy? Okay. Thank you, Amy. And if we could have the applicant, if the applicant could raise their hand, please. Very good. Bob, I've got you. Thank you. Okay.
I've got Dean here with me. We're sharing a computer here.
Okay. All right. Very good. If I can get your, raise your right hand, state your name and address, and Amy's going to swear you in.
Okay. I'm Bob Vinsan, 306 West Jefferson, LaGrange.
Okay.
I'm Dean Walterl, 642 Dawkins Lane, Sulphur, Kentucky.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
All right. Very good. Bob, you are the applicant. Dean, what's your role with the applicant or application?
Dean is the applicant. Bobby is the surveyor.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the applicant.
Okay. All right,
And
very
the
good.
owner.
Thank you. Okay, guys, if you all could justify the project, please.
Well, I bought this property with the intent of dividing this so that my wife and I could build a new home. We have family that actually own the property behind what we bought and down the road. And we just want to move back into Oldham County and be closer to our children and grandchildren. And so when this lot came up this house came up for sale, I decided to buy it with the intent on being able to divide it and build a new home for my wife and myself.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant.
Can't believe this. I'm always the first guy to ask a question. Is there going to be a shared driveway between these two lots?
No,
Oh, you'll have a separate driveway for each lot?
separate driveway. Yes, sir.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Where is the finger system or sewage on this property?
The septic tank is directly behind the existing house. And the lateral field is also directly behind the existing house.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Mike, knowing you don't have video, are you okay? Do you have questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And Amy, did we get any letters of support or opposition?
No, we did not.
Very good. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Please speak up. So I've got to scroll through multiple screens. Anybody in favor? Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, very good. Bob or Dean, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, very good. Thank you. Board members, please speak up. Do you have questions for anybody?
I have no questions.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. I'm ready. Well, no, I'll close the floor for a public hearing, open it up for general discussion among the board members.
Larry, I calculated on the square footage that's remaining for each lot. And according to Oldham County regulations, to have a septic tank, you must have 43,560 square feet, which both of these lots exceed that requirement. So I have heard the testimony and I have no problem with this application.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mike.
What he said.
Thank you, Fred. Okay.
I think what I would like to add on that is that the uniqueness of this property is actually what's across the street. So if you start looking at adding more driveways and into lots that are narrower, then one of the things I think about is what kind of traffic or density are we adding? The fact that there's no driveways on the opposite side of the road actually causes me to say, well, then that means even if you had, so if you're having a higher density or 130 feet instead of 150 on things like that, then you're still not as much traffic as you would if you had houses on the opposite side.
That is correct. I agree.
All right, guys. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm ready to take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve docket OC 20-014, requesting a lot width variance 20 feet for 2 tracts of land, tract number 1 and tract number 2, because of the following. Both tracts are above the minimum square footage of 43,560 square feet for lots that have a septic tank system. It will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity. It will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the applicable zoning regulations. It will not be a detriment to public safety and welfare because of the adequate site distance for the driveway onto the county road with a posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Potential conditions of approval. The variance shall apply only the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the November 19, 2020 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Fred. Any discussion? I'm sorry, the floor is closed. Board members, any discussion? All right, Bree, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
All right, Mr. Hutchins,
In favor.
Mr. Burr,
In favor.
Mr. Otterbeck,
In favor?
Mr. Riley,
In favor?
and Mr. Funk.
Favor.
Very good. The motion's been approved. The motion's passed and the application's been approved. Thank you. Moving on to the third. Mr. Riley, if you could read the next one, please.
All right. An application of docket OC 20015. An application has been filed requesting a side yard setback variance for an existing structure located at 4701 West Highway 146, Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. All right, I will start sharing my screen now. All right, is everyone able to see this fine and dandy?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So as Mr. Riley stated, an application has been filed requesting a side yard setback variance for an existing structure located at 4701 West Highway 146 in Buckner. It is zoned I2 and is 7.36 acres. Here we have an aerial view. So it's on the corner of Quality Place. Here we have the pavement, so you can see the impervious surface and the building. Here's the zone, so it's in the sea of I2 with just a little island of R2 on the other side of Old LaGrange Road. So on March 15th, 1973, the Oldham County Board of Adjustments approved docket 325, a height variance request allowing the structure to be 23 feet over the allowable 45-foot maximum height. So the structure now, as it stands today, is 45, 65, 68 feet tall. So here, the subject lot must observe the I2 minimum side yard setback of 35 feet. The applicant is requesting a variance of 25 feet to have the existing structure 10 feet from the side property line. On the right side, you can see the submitted graphic from the applicant. The applicant is proposing a minor plat to create a proposed tract 2, shown in yellow, totaling 2.62 acres. This new proposed tract will have frontage along 146 and Quality Place. The applicant's justification states that the existing parcel has a railroad spur line on the north side. By allowing the side yard variance and creating the additional parcel, the spur can give access to a new user, which complies with objective land use 1.31 or 1-3.1 rather. Properties in the area have been divided in a similar manner as a proposed property division. There were several large tracts that have been divided over the years, probably in part due to the installation of sanitary sewers. The original building and parcel had a very large septic lateral field to serve the building, and this is no longer necessary. Commercial properties in the area are currently being divided and developed in a similar manner as this proposal. By allowing the 25-foot side yard setback variance, the applicant can create the new parcel at 2.6 acres, which is compatible with other uses in the commercial area. And that also complies with objective land use 3-2.1 of the comprehensive plan. So here we have the site visit. The red line shows roughly 10 feet. Here's the existing railroad spur line. This is the only existing structure on the proposed tract 2. So this was placed out there for the Rego employees back when they were operating. So here's just another view looking back towards the property. Here we are looking down 146 towards Quality Place. So this is a south view. Here we're looking east across towards the railroad tracks and Old LaGrange Road. Here we're looking south at the new apartments on the south side of Quality Place. And here we are looking down Quality Place as the road crews were maintaining the new road. And here we are looking north up 146. So in total, the applicant is requesting a side yard setback variance. The required side yard is 35 feet. The applicant is requesting 10 feet. Therefore, the variance will be 25 feet.
I think you do that in appeal, but
All right, very good. Tom, is that it?
Yes, sir.
they may.
Thank you. You can go back to gallery view.
Actually, before you go back to there, I have a question related to one of the pictures.
Sure. What slide would you like, Mr. Hutchins?
I would, could you pull up the one of actually showing the building from like where you're standing on the ground? Not an yeah, like
This one?
I think so. There's a variance. The history of the site has this variance requested to make it where it's as high as 68 feet. I don't know where that is or what part that is.
So as you know, just because you get a variance doesn't mean it necessarily they built it. They just have the ability to build it that high. So I did misspeak in saying that is 68 feet. They have the ability to go up to it. I don't know if they did or not. I didn't look far into if they did get building permits, but I know that's just through the site history. That's what I found.
Okay. And I'll ask the applicant for more history.
Tom, the side where they're asking for the variance, show me let me see a different view of that, please. Okay, you say that's the only structure that's on where the variance will be? Is the
correct? The proposed tract, this is the only existing structure. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Tom? Board members? Please speak up. Okay. Tom, if you can go back to gallery view, please.
All right. Let me see here. I need to figure out. Yeah, here we go. Stop share. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Tom. If the applicant could raise your hand, please. All right, very good. Thank you. So are one of you, I'm seeing two, are one of you an attorney?
Good morning, Mr. Otterback. I'm Joni Bodorf. I'm the attorney representing GHC Properties, LLC. I'm also here with Mr. Jay Hall and Mr. Jason Greer.
Great, thank you, Joni. Okay, if you want to justify the project and if the others.
We need to swear in, Jay Hall is on as well, and we need to swear in the applicants.
There we go, okay.
They're going to testify.
All right.
So you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
We do. So good morning, everybody. We're here on the application from GHC Properties LLC to request a 25-foot side lot line.
Joni, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt. You have another speaker on or something, so we're getting an echo.
Okay, we're going to take care of that. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
We got to turn those off. Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. So GHZ is asking for the 25-foot side lot variance, and this is going to be on the east side of the Rego building. I believe we're all familiar with the Rego building in Buckner. Their plans are to use that area, that variance, as an access road and for utilities for a proposed retail center on the front part of the property. Currently, the use of the land is inefficient and underutilized. We have a vacant Rego building that's been vacant for a long time, and over 2.5 acres in the front, which is road frontage to 146 and Quality Place. So we're trying to use the land more efficiently. It's already zoned for this kind of development. And according to the comprehensive plan, as we mentioned earlier, as Amy mentioned earlier, objective B, well, business 1 and 2, support existing businesses and industry to thrive and grow in Oldham County, encourage the highest and best use of existing industrial and commercial land through flexible land development regulations. This is from your own comp plan. And we already have this property ready to go in Buckner. It would provide more jobs, a better tax base for the area. And also we have land use 1-3, establish development priority areas. I believe Buckner is already a priority area for commercial industrial use. And this plan is compatible with the use that we're already zoned in. So we're asking that you encourage this kind of development in Buckner. Let us use the land more efficiently. And we believe it's compatible with the area. One other thing to note, this property is unique for 2 reasons, I believe, and that's the spur line that comes onto the property. Those are very hard to find these days. So potentially we could have another user to that spur line, but in the alternative, this line, it also limits GHC property's use of the land because it takes over the right side of the property. So the variance would allow GHC properties to better locate the building and have better use of the land. The other thing that makes this property unique is the road frontage to 146. It's very valuable property that's not being used. And we want to use this property as highest best use. And we don't believe that this proposal is contrary to any scheme of development in Buckner at the current time, and it will not harm public safety or welfare or diminish the value of the properties in Buckner. Jay and Jason, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. So to conclude, again, we're asking for the variance to allow for the access road and utilities on the east side of the Rego property, which is the road frontage side of Rego. We believe that the development would be good for Buckner. It's already zoned for this purpose, and it's in line with the comp plans B-1-2 and land use -1-3.
All right, very good. Thank you, Joni. Okay, are there any questions for Joni or the applicants?
I have a question, Larry.
Yes, Mike.
Since the address I have here is 4701 West Highway 146, would not that be the front property line, not the south, or not the side?
Is that question directed to me?
Yes.
Yes, that would be the front. If we do have an access road, it's going to come off Quality Place and not off 146.
But I think your application says you want a variance off of the side property line. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Where is the side property line? Quality Court?
Yes, it's the side property line. If you're familiar with the building, you're driving through Buckner, the side property line is, it looks like it's the front of the Rego building. It's what's facing 146. It's the east side.
So you're saying that the front property line is parallel to 146. Is that correct?
Correct, but it's actually the side property line. The front of the building is on Quality Place.
Would you like me to screen share the graphic again?
Please, Tom, that would be great.
Mike, currently it's a corner lot, so it technically has 2 frontages, one on 146 and one on Quality Place. The proposed division that they're doing, the access would come off Quality Place for the existing building. So then that building would technically front on Quality Place, and the right side property line would become the side, not the front any longer. Because it's As one track, it has two frontages, 146 and Quality, but with the proposed division,
Okay.
the front now faces Quality Place for the tract one.
Thank you, Amy.
Gotcha. Okay. I got it. Thank you. Well, in that case, where the building is and the parcel that you want to sell, then on that parcel, the front property line would be 146. Is that correct?
It depends on where they choose to have their entrance and face it. Most likely it will be 146.
Let the entrance be on.
Like Amy said, being a corner lot, and she explained it well, that the building now, the existing building will have a Quality Place address.
Got it. I got that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Thank you.
I guess, Joni, the question I have is why? So we're creating the track 2. Why not move that, that division another 15 feet? Track 2, the proposed track 2 is 2.62 acres. Why are we drawing the line where it is? Why not draw it so that it meets the current regulation?
Okay, and I believe there's two reasons for that. That's a great question. First is they're not going to the plan does not include actually building a structure within that variance setback area. It would be used for an access road. And if you're familiar, there's already a gravel access road there at this point. It would also provide enough space for utilities. The second reason is because of the road frontage on 146 and growth in the area, I'm sure there are plans to widen 146, and in order to allow enough space for that, we would like to move the retail center, proposed retail center, further back off of 146. I do believe the plan is to have the access road off of Quality Place and not 146, and this would just allow enough space for all of that. You have anything to add?
I think that's everything Joni said is right. And as far as the entrance onto this new track, we're going to go at whatever the state highway department tells us we can do. But I anticipate it will be off a Quality Place, the entrance. And I guess I would add, I'm not even sure the Quality Place was in existence when this was first built. I believe Quality Place was probably created at some point after the Rego building was originally built. Definitely wasn't brought into the county system until just very recently, or is in the process, I think now, or just has been, as being a county road.
And I'd like to just add, and I'm sure you're familiar with this as well, we have development coming up across from us at Quality Place. There's an apartments and a grocery coming in. The YMCA is at the very end of Quality Place. This is just a development center in Buckner. And this proposed change, this proposed development would add to that existing development plan.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, if there's continued questions along those lines, please ask those, but I want to go a different direction.
I'm fine, Rob.
Okay. So there's a couple of questions. One, you made reference to, we all know about this building and its history. I do not. And I definitely don't know about the variance that was applied. So I would like you to give me the history and so I can understand why there is a variance for the height. And I got to be, my line of questioning will continue about things like safety, specifically when we start looking at industrial setbacks. A lot of times industrial setbacks have questions of why they're as big, because with industrial activities, you have chances for much greater fire and that kind of protection that we need. So I'm really looking to understand more about the height variance and why it was there, whether it's something that, because it continues on unless it's revoked. And then specifically about, with you talking about putting utilities and putting other things that are going to be close to the other buildings. So I'm going to be questioning about safety. So history, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houchins, for those questions. Part of this I'm going to turn over to Mr. Hall to answer with respect to the variance to the height. And currently, if you saw from the west picture that Tom provided, the building is higher. I believe it is 68 feet at its highest point already. Okay, so
That's exactly the answer, Mr. Houghton, is that the current structure that's the Rego building that's not on the lot that we're hoping to create. Currently in the rear of that building, it's much higher than in the front portion of the building out close to this lot that we're wanting to create. In the rear of the building, if it's not 68 feet, it's close to it currently. And so that's why I'm sure that variance was granted back many years ago when that building was constructed, or sometime after that building was constructed, when planning and zoning saw fit to grant that variance. And that had to do with their applications and what they did in that building at the time. I don't anticipate needing any kind of variance, a height variance, along those lines on this new track.
So
I think they may have had, I'll just continue a little bit, in the Rego building, I think their production facility that was there, they may have had some type of a silo inside of the building that held some of their products. And that's why that large height requirement was necessary for their production.
Okay. So my concern on the opposite side is you guys obviously have talked through plans about access, easements, and utilities, those kinds of things on the side where you're asking for the smaller, we're asking for the variance. So can we be specific about what you're trying to put in that area? Because again, I'm concerned with specifically safety, especially, and how tall is the building on that side then? A couple of those questions.
The building that we would probably construct on the new lot should be within the guidelines and parameters as set forth by planning and zoning. I anticipate some type of a commercial building with retail space, and because I believe that's probably the highest and best use of the property at this time. And you know, don't anticipate requesting any variances for this site. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so then if you're talking about making it retail, but then there was reference to it having access to the railroad. So that's, you're saying that's, why is that an issue?
Well, it's an issue because since the railroad spur is there, it might limit the closeness that we would put a retail space next to that railroad spur. So, you know, it is there. I don't really anticipate using the railroad spur for this tract of land that will be created, but we would probably want to make sure we maintain a safe distance from it, and probably will petition it to keep, you know, well, I think it's partially petitioned now with a chain link fence, but we would petition it to keep any pedestrians from wandering over towards the spur on this track that would be created. I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it does or not.
Okay. Question for staff then. We talked about side yard versus front yard versus rear yard, and we're talking about the access being different depending on where this new created tract. So I do not have my book with me. I apologize. So on the side yard is 35 feet. What is a rear yard setback requirement on this I-2?
The rear yard setback requirement is minimum 25 feet.
Okay, and then if we're talking about splitting this new tract off, then you're talking about moving it to retail. Does that mean we're gonna have to create it's gonna have to be rezoned?
Well, I wasn't, staff was not aware of the plans prior to this hearing, but we can take a look at, there
No,
are some permitted uses. I'm sorry?
It doesn't require a rezone. Well, and again, it depends on what they propose.
Correct.
So when they have a solid idea of what they're intending to put on there, they'll bring it to us, and then we'll review it for whatever it is that the lane uses and also the standards are.
Okay, so my question goes to, though, if the zoning changed. So they said the likely highest, and again, if I misquote, correct me, but I believe what was said was the highest and best use is likely going to be retail. And so what are the, again, I don't have that in front of me, what are the setback requirements on that?
0.
We look at the two.
Well, yeah, that's if it's zoned commercial, it would be 0. So if they chose to go to a commercial zoning, it's a 0 setback.
So there comes to my point where I'm looking at right now. If we go making this variance from 35 to 10 and we grant the 25 variance, and then we change it to commercial, that turns into a 0. Suddenly have 10, you know, we could literally end up with a 0 with a 10 feet between the two buildings. One is I and the other is commercial. And then suddenly we've created a situation that was not ideal for an I designated building to have only 10 feet between there and a commercial building.
Well, Rob, if they did go to commercial, if they decided to rezone, it'd still be a whole public hearing. They go through the whole process. You have the neighborhood hearing, you have TRC, planning commission. They couldn't just switch it. They'd have to go through the proper channels.
I understand you can't just choose that. I understand there has to be gone through proper channels. But my comment is we could be creating something if we head down this road that's been potentially talked about.
So I have 2 comments. One is if it's state industrial, there's a 25-foot rear yard setback. I would assume that it's going to face 146. So that would be the rear yard. The second comment would be, and I'm going to direct it to Mr. Hall, who has commercially zoned property, and typically you don't see, and I don't want to give testimony, but you typically don't see a commercial building that is right on the property line simply because they have utilities and deliveries. And so retail centers typically are automatically set back to allow access, dumpsters, deliveries, utility connections, whatever it might be. But I think Mr. Hall might be able to answer that better than me.
That's exactly right, Mr. Urban. And our anticipation would be whatever building that we would put on this new parcel the building itself would be set back from the property line, I would say at least 25 feet. And so you'd still have your 35 feet from the existing structure. But that 25 feet would be the area where we would have service entrances, service access, to maybe rear dumpsters for the building, utility easements coming into the building. So if we weren't able to get this variance, then that pushes the building site itself, because you still got to have the service road that runs around behind it, even closer to 146. And that's when we start to worry about, having adequate parking and worry about all the easements up on 146, of which there are several. So, that's part of the reason for asking for the variance.
Mr. Houchins, I think, if you still have a concern, it's possible to put a condition on the approval of this, if you were to grant it, that property, when it's developed, has to have a minimum. And let's just say it's 10 feet. Because again, we don't know exactly what they're going to lay out there, but if there's a comfort level that the building would have a minimum of something setback. And I don't want to be random about it, but at least that would give you an idea that it wouldn't be right on the property line.
Yeah, Jim, you're headed exactly down the road I was headed down, because if we go and we grant this, my concern again is we're talking about 35 feet. And if we go to a commercial property, then that means, and I understand that the testimony was that their plan, Well, that could be what they planned, but then as property potentially changed hands, people could say, hey, I have a 0 setback, so I'm going to add on to my building and move it back to that 0 setback. So if the only way I can see me coming along with something like this is trying to figure out how do we get, I mean, 35 feet was what's supposed to be for the I in designation to begin with. So the minimum I believe I could potentially get comfortable with would be if between the two properties, if there's some sort of designation that gives that as part of the restriction on this, on the parcel that's being split off. I'm just talking about myself. I don't know what the other board members think.
Can I say something at this time? I don't think we would have any problem, because I don't know exactly what we're going to build there at this time, at this point, as far as what the building would, how it would be configured and everything. But as far as agreeing to the 10-foot, that if you all grant us this variance, and then say another 15-foot of that the building couldn't be constructed within 15 feet from that point, that would give you 25-foot total. And I believe 25-foot total is the current rear. Is that not the current setback for the rear yard in commercial?
25 foot.
Well, industrial it is, commercial, the setback is 0.
So it would be meeting the current industrial setback if we did if we agreed to a conditional approval of 15 feet on this current track that we're going to create, along with the other 10-foot. So that would only be a 10-foot variation from the current guidelines had we never shown up. And I think I don't think we would agree to that.
Okay, but I'm going to argue with your numbers just a little bit. One, for the current property, if we were to do it and not ask for any kind of variance, we would have to be 35 feet from the current building to the property line. And then there would be additional setup depending on what that new designation of the new property would be. So 35 is to avoid this whole process. If you had done 35, then that would.
Yeah, hang on. It's 35 for side. Jim, did you not? What is rear? What's the rear?
Rear is 25.
Rear is 25. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
With the current zoning, it's 25.
Okay.
If they were to change the zoning, it would be 0. If they went to commercial.
No, that's right. Okay. All right. So
you talk, but not on this one. Right in the application, page 2, it's where we said is required side yard 35 feet, requested side yard 10, variance requested 25.
That's
okay.
for the existing building.
Right.
That's for the existing building, the Regal.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
But on the new track 2, if it faces 146, then the rear of it is going to be the area that we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, so if they do 15 feet plus the 10 feet for this one is 25, that meets the rear setback if it faces 146.
But it won't meet the current building setback.
It will, yes.
35. This is side yard setback 35.
Okay, yeah.
So if we did this, let's talk through what you just said, Larry. What we're here is it's 35 feet. If we split this, it's 35 feet from the existing building, and then there would be an additional 25 from 146 for a total of 60. That's what it really would be. It's 60. What I'm talking about is compromising from 60 down to something less than 60. Because if we say no variance on either property and it faces 146, it's 25 and 35 for a total of 60.
That's at the current zoning. If they were to read
what I'd like to say to that is, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Mr. Houghton. However, our other option would be to go and get a rezoning, and then it would be 0. And I believe we could probably get a rezoning, but we're trying to avoid going for a rezoning and trying to avoid a 0. So,
I appreciate that. I completely appreciate that you're talking about in those terms. Absolutely agree. My point is here is if we just kept it and denied this and made it 35 feet, then it'd be 35. There's no denying that. Then you could go to this, rezone it and get to 0. And that would end up with 35 feet between the two buildings, not 25.
Let me suggest something to you. If we do not get the variance, there won't be adequate space to build a retail structure there, have parking, have an access road, and that would accommodate future growth in Buckner with 146 being widened out. And I'd like to draw you back to your comprehensive plan, which would encourage growth in areas that are already planned for industrial use, for commercial use, rather than going back out into the county and using up more space in the rural areas. Land use 1-3 says to encourage development to locate in areas with existing infrastructure and services before moving into the less developed areas in the county. And also in objective BI-1-2, encourage the highest and best use of existing industrial and commercial land through flexible land development regulations. That's exactly what we have here, Mr. Houchins. We have this land, prime area in Buckner, sitting on 146 in Quality Place, development going on all around the area. And this is 7.5 acres with a vacant building, 2.5 acres of green space up front that is not being utilized. And I hope.
So let me respond to that. So don't misunderstand my line of questioning and where I want to go. I'm trying to figure out how to make something approved that we can all live with. And so the question is 10 feet far enough? I struggle with that, especially if we have the potential of changing it to commercial 0 and having it to 10. So the only way I can see a path forward for me, I'm not talking about the rest of the board members, is if we come up with an agreeable space between the two divided properties that allows us to have enough space that meets some sort of standard. Because right now, scenario 1 is 35 feet is what is required on this. And then if you kept the newly subdivided area at 25, that's a total of 60. Okay, well, let's say that's not where we're going to go. Then we go to scenario 2, where the current I2 designation stays with the current property with the current building. And then we change the property on the next one to get with a zoning of 0. Then it's 35 plus 0 for a total of 35. So I get that what you're trying to do. And I would much encourage, for example, if you want to say, no, I want to make it where it's 10 on the existing building property, and we'll do 25 on the other one. I could see my path forward to that, because you could do it obviously the other way, make it 35 and 0. So I can find my way there, and I want to figure out how to make this usable property. I want to go with the comprehensive plan. I want you guys to be able to develop it, because I do think that's what's best for our community, especially when it's an area that is already designated and being used for this kind of thing. So don't misinterpret my questioning. What I'm trying to do is figure out how to make it potential to make it happen so that I can feel comfortable voting in favor. That's what I'm trying to accomplish, not trying to argue that it shouldn't be done or wouldn't be better for the community. So for me, let me put it down in bottom line for me. I can't speak for the rest of the board members. If we could come to some sort of agreement between the two properties where it's a total of 35, I think I could support it. If it's less than that you're saying we have to do, I really need to understand why it would have to be less than that 35 in total between the two properties for me to be comfortable that there is the restriction makes it onerous, or it would be unusable in the second property or something.
Bob, go ahead. Sorry.
Just a thought, maybe for Jim or Tom or Amy. What is the Kentucky Building Code separation for commercial buildings?
I don't think any of us are qualified to answer that because we're not the building inspector, but I think what's important is whether or not the fire department has any issues with a setback like this. And so I'm sorry, Bobby, I don't know that answer.
Okay.
I never answer building code questions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to help,
Sure.
come up with a reasonable number here also.
Understood.
So we're a little bit out of order.
Yeah. We haven't
A
even
little-
asked if anybody in favor or opposition.
Yeah, I know. So any other, and we'll come back to this, but let's get back on order. Any other questions for the application or the applicants?
Yes, I do, Larry. This is Mike Riley.
Yeah, Mike.
This building that will be built, which way will it face? What, the front of the building will be facing what direction?
Most likely it would face 146.
Which is east.
Correct. Yes, sir.
It'll be facing, so 146 will turn out to be the front property line. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
And right now we have a regulation of 100-foot setback. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, how does that work?
The
They
front,
would have to be behind the 100-foot property line or
Or the
setback.
property line, 100 foot, yeah.
Right.
Is
Well,
that gonna work?
I think that's an argument more for our variance that we're willing to do the 15 feet in addition to the 10, because we do get tight when we get up towards 146, to your point. And we've got the spur line we got to work around as well. Those are part of the reasons we're asking for this variance of roughly 10 feet that we're talking about once we versus going for a zoning change.
So Mike, when you're asking, how is that going to work? You're asking the applicants, is a 100-foot setback going to work for you? That's your question?
I'm stepping a yard ahead. Whoever buys this property and develops, or maybe Mr. Hall is going to be the developer and put up the building, lease it out, okay? But that 100 feet's got to be figured in there, or somebody's going to be coming back in for another variance on the front.
I believe you are right.
So I personally think this is a very complex situation, and I really don't have a good understanding of where we're going to go.
And Mr. Chairman, I have something to say that's almost testimony, but as your staff and being involved in road projects, I need to interject it somewhere that's very relevant to the current conversation. So I don't know, again, I know we always caution about offering testimony.
So Jim, why don't, do you want to hold on to that until we have open discussion among the board members?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Mike, back to you. Did you get your question answered from?
Yes, yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, your point is well taken.
Just real quick, just a clarification point too. If the property wasn't divided into two tracts, they would still have the same required setback on 146 of 100 feet, on Quality Place as 100 feet, because it is a corner track. So irregardless of the division line, the 100-foot setback for any structure on 140 facing 146, whichever, there's still a 100-foot setback on 146. There's still a 100-foot setback on Quality Place. The orientation of the building is going to determine where the rear ends up, the required rear yard setback ends up, and where the side sets up. If they left it as one track, there's still availability to construct on it. They're just trying to separate the uses.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicants? Ron, you good? Mike?
Yes.
Good. Very good. Fred, you good?
I am.
Rob?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Calling anybody that, well, first of all, Amy or Tom, I'm sorry. Did we get any letters of support or opposition? That we're
No, sir,
under.
not for this case.
Very good, thank you. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Please speak up. I'm struggling to see hands. Okay, seeing or hearing none, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Please speak up.
Anybody want to speak in opposition?
Okay, seeing or hearing none. Board members, questions for anybody else in the audience before we close the floor and we'll open it up for general discussion? Do you have any further questions for anybody?
Yeah. Yes, I do. All right. So, sir, I can't remember your name. There were the two of you.
It's Joni Bodorf and Mr. J. Hall.
Okay. So, sir, when you obviously have done some math at some point, because your comment was, you know, if we did 10 and 15, you know, that works for you. And so for me, there's nothing in that's your opinion, and that's based on some sort of math. My question to you is, what sort of math have you done? Because if we do the 100-foot setbacks, if we do the sides over here, you've obviously done something to come up with 25 would make it to where you need, but 35 would be too much. In other words, you've done something to make yourself comfortable that 25 is, and is there something you can share with us as to why that is a land restriction that would go with this? Is there something that you've got?
Well, we have concerns about utilities and having to bring the utilities in and having to bring our service road in to service the property. And I'm concerned that we would just get really tight with another 10 feet. I can't sit here and tell you with 100% certainty I couldn't make it work, but I'm concerned about making it work. So you know, I'm just thinking 25 feet from the current building is not that much of a variance. We're talking about 10 feet had we gone for a zoning change, which I believe we would be able to get, but it would take time to do it. And, you know, just trying to work through the process, sir.
Jim, this may be an appropriate place for you to chime in. Did you have something regarding your knowledge of roads and working with these types of projects?
I think it's probably best if you close the floor to public comment in that portion of this, and then I'll comment.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jim. Okay,
So,
Rob.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to address you on this. So for me on this, I really feel like I want to figure out a compromise that works for the parties involved, and so for me, I feel like that we're premature in the decision making, because I really would love to see the divided piece of property that we're talking about. And here is with 100 feet, it would leave this much space. And if you did 25 versus 35, here's how it would lay it out, and here's how it would restrict and make this unusable or usable. And I really feel like with a little bit of work, we maybe could come to a point where we can see what the limitations are, because that's one of the ways that we can, in fact, put our hands on approving variances, because it does have certain property restrictions. And so for me, I really feel like on this could be it's up to the applicant. But Mr. Chairman, what I'm suggesting is it really feels like if we took the piece of property that's going to be subdivided and laid out all the restrictions, and here's what it would be if it was 25 or 35 or whatever, then it may be a way for us to put our hands around whether it does make the property unusable.
Well, what I have to say is going to have a direct impact on your question, Mr. Houchins.
Okay. I know what you're going to say, so okay.
Yeah. So I agree. Let's wait until we close the floor, and I also want to address.
Don't close it yet.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
I have another comment. I agree with Mr. Houchins, what he just said.
Okay, all right. Board members, any questions for anybody in the audience or staff before we close the floor and do a discussion among ourselves? Any further questions? Okay. All right. Last chance, please speak up. I didn't see. All right, I'm going to close the floor. Now let's open up for discussion among the board members. Jim, we'll start with you.
Well, great, thank you. You know, and again, this is borderline testimony, but it's stuff I know, and it's important while you're considering this application. Ms. Butoff referred to improvements to 146, and I wanted to affirm that that in fact is the case. The transportation cabinet in the long-range planning for especially in particular Oldham County, because this is 146 is a state route, has long had a project in the funding cycle, just waiting for it to be prioritized to improve Kentucky 146 from Crestwood all the way to LaGrange. What we have been asking the transportation cabinet to do is to prioritize the Buckner area. We'll widen this a little bit. Kentucky 393 is going to go under the railroad tracks. You've seen the first phase of that. When that happens, you know, the Buckner area has seen incredible amounts of growth. What we're asking the cabinet to prioritize is from exit 17, which is just down the road from this project, all the way to that new alignment of 393, because we have issues like Cedar Point Road and the school campus and no turn lanes. Now, there have been some roads, some turn lanes that have been put in this general area, but it's really critical that we look at this entire road length. When we do that, if you look on the survey that's in your packet provided by Mr. Vinsan, the existing Kentucky 146 has only got a 50-foot right-of-way. Every time we've had a project in this area of 146, we've asked for additional right-of-way. We will probably do that with Mr. Hall's property. When we do that, we're going to take some of his land away or pay for it one way or another so that we can actually make sure that we have turning lanes all throughout this segment of roadway. If we keep taking additional land from this property by requiring it a bigger setback in the back, as an example, we'll end up in a similar situation as we had down the road at Cedar Point Road when we have an industrially zoned piece of property, and when you apply on a corner of Cedar Point Road and 146, and when you apply all the setbacks, you end up with a tiny piece of it that's available for development. So I wanted to add this in because in your discussion, I get where you're going in terms of comfort level of potentially approving a variance, but we're going to be taking more of this land one day. We're going to have to reserve right away. And again, I'm on the border of testimony, but it's the truth that, you know, when we look at this without a development plan on it, I think we need to be careful not to overly restrict the ability of this property to be developed.
Thank you, Jim. We're in the point open discussion among board members. My thought is going back to what we had talked about before is if this becomes a rear yard setback, it's or if this becomes a rear yard, that setback is 25 feet. I understand, you know, the 35 versus 25, I understand where you're coming from, but my question, I guess, to you is why? It seems like you're very much advocating for 35. You're very much opposed to anything less than that. The question is why? I'm comfortable with 25. You know, it's for safety. It's for getting the vehicles in and out of there. I think 25 is sufficient. Why? And again, I guess the question goes back to me. Why? Why 25? Why are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, we could have that discussion, but Larry, I think you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't 25 versus 35. It's 60 versus what?
Well, yeah.
Okay, because that's the real question. This is zoned I2, right? And so if we're talking about I-2 and we're going to make it where the I-2 only has 10 and it's supposed to have 35, that only is all we're talking about with tract one. Tract one, the only question is are we going to make it be 35 or something less than 35? That's one question. Then the second question becomes the second part. And so for me, that's obviously heading down that road of what does happen, because if we're talking about making it retail, then that becomes, you can promote, commercially zone it, and then you can make the setback 0. So literally, if we did do something, then we could literally have it, let's go to the worst case scenario. You could literally have it where the commercial property sits on the property line with 0, and you only have 10 feet between that retail establishment and industrial I-2. And remember, with I-2, it's this heavy industrial. And so there's a reason that we look at I-2 industrial zoning. I mean, there's a reason you have space between there and other places. That's why it's generally larger. So it's a safety issue that has been set in our zoning regulations that we should do, okay? Unless there's a reason to not. And I'm trying. I really want to make this usable property. If I was the owner, and then if I'm not the owner, even if I'm just a resident in the area looking out for Oldham County, I'm all for trying to make where they can figure out how to make this usable, valuable property that is good for the community. So yeah, 25 versus 35. I really think we're talking 35, or we're 60 versus 35 or 25.
So, all right. So I know we're in the part open discussion among board members. Jim's already spoken here, but I do want to bring Jim in for another line of questioning. You know, you had mentioned earlier, or somebody, about the health department and other departments that weigh in on these types of decisions.
Is this discussion or is this opening the floor back up? If he's giving testimony, or is this advice on standards?
That's about to start with.
Yeah, let me think about that. Other board members, any other discussion or input right now?
I've got a question. Is it possible that moving forward, that the building in question, being the Regal building, could be converted to commercial, and then both properties being at 0 lot line?
Yeah,
I hadn't even thought about that.
If that's the case, then the 25 feet seems to be quite acceptable. Going back to what Mr. Hall said, he would be comfortable with a restriction on the created tract 2 having a 15-foot limit.
Ron, do you have two speakers on or something? Because we're getting feedback.
I'm getting feedback too, Jim, and I honestly don't know how to stop it.
Okay.
Someone tells me how, I'll be happy to do it.
Well, you have you're logged on in 2 different places.
Yes.
One out, Amy.
You're on twice.
I don't know how that happened.
Okay. Well, I'll remove the one and see. Okay, now go.
Better now.
There you go.
Okay.
Amy fixed it.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
All right. So my question is it within the realm of possibility that the existing structure moving forward could be requested to be changed to a commercial building? Or is that once it's zoned industrial, it's out of the question?
You can always, you can always request a zoning change on any piece of property.
Okay. So where I'm going with that is kind of following up with what Rob's saying. I understand the math that Rob's applying. It makes perfectly good sense, but I can't help but to think that potentially moving forward, if tract 2 is commercial, the existing building gets rezoned to commercial, then we could potentially have both properties at 0 lot line.
Yeah, that's right.
I think working that math backward, Rob, to your point, you know, you're looking at the spaces between, and you're focusing on the building as its previous use, because I've heard testimony that the building's been sitting vacant for some time now. So my question would be is, if they're requesting 10 and then in the future, or, you know, the building becomes then commercial, if we did 10 on track one with the existing building, and Rob, to your point, and Mr. Hall, I think I heard him say that he would be comfortable with putting a 15-foot. Now we're dealing with a 25 feet of maybe going forward 2 commercial structures. And I'm just thinking out loud, making sure I understand what could happen with the existing industrial building.
Yeah,
You're on the right path, Ron.
That's all I've got to say about that. I just wanted to interject it.
Yeah. And given the fact to what Jim had said, that it's quite possible, quite probable that we're going to be taking some of the land away in the future anyway, we need to, consider the future use. I'm comfortable with the 25 feet, guys.
Am I, based on what I heard Mr. Hall testify to previously, is that the future building that on track 2 would then need some sort of an access road or something to that effect. I too would be in support of that as well, Larry. Thank you.
Mr. Riley, you have
Yes.
anything?
No, I'm trying to digest all that's been said. When I read this thing many times, of all the dockets that we had today, this by far is the most complex, and it should be. And I too am in favor of more development in Buckner because of the growth. I mean, it's just, we are underdeveloped as far as retail goes, in my opinion.
All right. Any other discussion? Fred, got anything?
No, I'm with Mike.
Rob, anything else?
I want to make the things work. I really do. I just also want to consider all the things we have to consider in terms of safety and everything else. So
I agree. I appreciate that. I think,
Somebody brought up, it does make it difficult when we have a piece of paper with some drawings, but on this new track, there's no building. In most cases, when people come to us and they want to build something, there's a structure on it. And Rob brought that up, and I think that's a darn good point.
yeah, we know what we're dealing with here. We really don't.
We don't know what we're dealing with.
They're asking for a variance and we're scratching our head saying, well,
You got it. That's
I don't
exactly
know
right.
why.
Yeah, I'm really honest with you. I'm not comfortable.
yeah,
I'm just not comfortable.
Well,
Larry, I have a question. If we don't know what's there, then wouldn't that then have to be reviewed and approved down the road? I mean, that really has no bearing on this conversation now. Is that correct?
that's exactly right.
Okay, that's a good point.
Okay.
That's
But-
a good point.
I just want to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
but wait a minute. I'm not sure I agree with that. Because what we're talking about is sometimes we grant variances to do setback differences because of the uniqueness of the property and because of there are restrictions. I mean, that's exactly what we do consider. So why couldn't we? I mean, look, to this point, if we had this track 2 drawn with here's this setback and here's the thing that Jim was talking about that could be done for turn lanes, and here's all the stuff that could be done, and here's where we this, and look, here's our footprint gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and now that means we can only build a property at maximum. That's a normal size usable property, not something that's triangular where you can't use anything inside. I mean, that's the kind of thing I could get way more comfortable if we had something like that.
Well, so just think of the things that we do know. It's currently zoned industrial. They want to separate it. We know the size of track 2. We know the limitations of track 2 today. We know the potential additional limitations down the road. We know it can be, commercial. We know that whole landscape over there is, we know what the county and what we want to do with that. We know where it's going. So think about what we do know and the probable outcome of that land. They're by testimony. They said it's going to be probable retail space. And that makes good sense. That's exactly what that whole area is, where it's going. So those are the things that we do know. When I said, they're asking for a variance and we just don't know, yeah, we don't know. We don't know where the building's going to be, what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, da, 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 da. We don't know that. That's fine. But what we do know is it will probably be retail or something similar. We do know that.
Larry, man, really, is there any reason we can't defer this for 30 days and ask for that to be added as part of our testimony? Because you're asking for me to do the math on this. I'm sorry, that's not my job. My job's to rule on it. My job's not to draw drawings on the drawings. My job's to ask the applicant to draw drawings on the drawings and give us the numbers. That's not my job. That's not what I should be. It's not that it's not my job. I hate that term. I need something presented to me that says, hey, look, here's what it is. And you got to have parking and you got to have a building. And so, we're.
Are you asking just for what the buildable area becomes on the proposed tract that fronts 146?
I would suggest that an applicant in a scenario like this could present something where they take that tract 2 and draw the 100-foot setback and draw all the setbacks on there and show, look, for me to have enough parking spaces and buildable area, not just buildable area, this really restricts me. So that extra 10 feet is really important. That's
called the buildable area, the area that they're allowed to construct parking, build the actual structure, the usable area of the tract. That's what you're asking for.
I think you're narrowing me down too narrow. What I'm saying is take that usable area and then suggest, hey, parking space and driveways and building, even if you said, here's a building and that would only give us 4 parking spots, which is obviously wouldn't work. Something that says, just consider this as a use. And then by doing that, we have in testimony something that shows us, hey, that 10 foot is really important as an example.
But Mr. Hutchins, I'm going to agree with Amy. The buildable area is what's important. If you start doing layouts, that could really change, because we have heard the applicant suggest that he doesn't have any idea what's going to go on this property. So along comes a buyer and says, oh, we want to put this. Well, they've just lied to you. But the buildable area is what I mentioned earlier about down the street. When we looked at the buildable area, it gave a tiny little triangle based on setbacks. In my opinion, that's the evidence you need.
Yeah, I don't want to do layouts. I didn't suggest that. I'm not saying.
Well, you are saying parking spaces and everything else. That's a layout.
No, it's not. And that's not what I'm saying. And if that's what you heard, then I need to clarify myself. What I'm saying is, if you take that buildable area and you say, hey, look, any kind of retail establishment is going to need to be at least this, and that would only leave this much more space for things like parking spots. I'm not asking to see a layout. I'm asking to do a buildable area, but then explain to me why that really restricts it a little bit. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, the applicant has raised their hand. I think they would love to speak, but they know we're in the discussion amongst the board only part. So just
I don't see that. So thank you for calling that to my attention.
Yes.
If you want to make a motion to reopen the floor, we certainly can.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, very good. All right, floor is reopened. And let's go ahead and call the applicant back. Do you guys have additional testimony or anything else to add?
Thank you, Mr. Otterbeck, and thank you, Mr. Hutchins, for all of your concerns. I do believe they're valid concerns. Just 2 points to make to the last statement, which is, trying to determine what the building would look like, what the parking would look like. At this point, we really don't have any idea. But I would take this as an opportunity for you all to grab the bull by the horns and set some parameters in here as far as the variance goes. Then the second point is we have no idea how much the state will take to increase the size of 146. So that's another concern when you're asking for these plans. That's an impossible standard that we can't provide to you. We don't have a buyer. We don't have a development plan. We don't know how much the state will take for 146. What we do know is where the Rego building is located, the size of the property, and basically how much we would need to have an access road and utilities run between Rego and a future development. So that's why we're asking for this variance. And I do believe this is a chance, an opportunity that you all could create a perimeter there that's safe between Rego and safe between the future development of this property, and also allow my clients to be able to develop and use the property for the benefit of Oldham County. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Jim, let me go back while we're in open session again. Let me go back to a previous question. Other departments, Department of Safety, and who are some of the other departments that would play into not necessarily approving or denying a setback, but where the buildings are located and how far apart, and the safety, and if somebody were to build on track 2, how else do these other departments come into play?
Well, when a development plan is proposed on track 2, every agency and utility that has jurisdiction in this area comes into play. They all get a chance to review it. So fire department, road department, county engineer, water, sewer, all of them look at it. So
where does that happen? TRC?
Well, it depends on the amount of traffic generated. It would either be staff level, TRC, or it could go all the way to the planning commission if it was it generated a large number of trips. So there's a three-tier process. And at minimum, I would think that this one would go at least to the TRC. So beyond staff level to the TRC. And again, everybody then has a chance to review it.
Okay. All right. While we have
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hey, Larry, I think another part of this element here, I would, if I'm not asking for confidential information, is what's the plans for the RICO building?
We don't have that at this time. We are talking to various people, realtors, but we don't have I can't tell you exactly what's going to be in the RICO building. And I guess I would also say, as for trying to bring back some sort of a layout on track 2, that's almost impossible at this time. If we know the building setbacks, then we can go out and try to market it to someone that, that will fall within those parameters. But it's impossible to market it until you know the building setbacks. And that's kind of the reason we're here.
Good point. That's a good point.
All right.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Board members, before we close the floor, any other questions? Ron, you good? Fred, you good?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
I'm good.
Very good. I'll close the floor and open it back up to general discussion.
Fred, you're off the hook. I did a lot more talking this time.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. I learned a lot too, listening to you.
Yeah, I did too, Fred.
I think my comments have been, I think I've said them. So I'm interested to hear everybody else.
I mean, I'm still I'm still comfortable with the 25 feet. I think that's I think it's fair for all parties. I think it helps achieve what we as a body want to achieve here. I think it helps achieve and uphold our comp plan. I'm comfortable with the 25 feet. I think they've agreed that that they're willing to do the 15-foot setback on a condition. I don't see any reason why 25 would not work. So I'm comfortable with, approving this with the 15-foot condition.
I agree with you as well on that, especially in light of the fact that when I asked the question that the existing Rego building could be approved for commercial, I think knowing now that I understand that, I concur with what you're saying as well.
What was that comment about the additional 15? I'm lost there.
Well, that's the conditional approval is that if this were to be approved, the applicants have stated that they are in agreement with approval on a 15-foot condition from the property line to the building. So what we have here is 10 feet, and they're in agreement with an additional 15 feet, which gives us the 25 feet.
Mike, that's in regards to creating track 2. Mr. Hall testified that he would be comfortable putting a 15-foot easement or right of way or something to that effect, if I'm getting the verbiage correctly, so we take the existing Rego building at 10, creating track 2, and that the applicant's saying that they would be comfortable with creating a 15-foot. Larry, what would we call that? An easement or a right of way or a setback?
Setback.
Building setback.
Right.
Building
Thank you,
setback.
Jim.
I can support that.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay. I'm flipping between screens here, so.
No, I want to make one comment, and maybe
Yeah.
self-serving, but I appreciate that we are in a county that is growing, and in spite of everything that's been going on in our larger sense with COVID and everything, I really do appreciate trying to work with people to try to figure out how to make things work. So, and I appreciate the input of the rest of the board, us listening to many sides, and it takes a little longer, but I appreciate that. I really want to say, I appreciate people like Jim saying, hey, look, here's other considerations you have to think of. And I know he's trying to walk the line between giving advice to the staff or to the members of this board and giving testimony. I know, Jim, that's a hard line to walk sometimes, but I think this is what we're supposed to do. This is how we're supposed to walk through it. This is the things we're supposed to try to figure out. So I appreciate all the discussion that's gone on in this case.
I agree. All right, given that, I'm ready to take a motion.
I will make a motion if somebody, I got scribbled some stuff out here. If somebody else will help me with the potential conditions. Okay?
I think what we've talked about, Mike, is the condition of approval would be for a building setback of 15 foot. And then, of course, the what's in the packet there, there's a couple of different other conditions of approval in your packet. But I think just if we put in the
condition.
I've
got that. Yeah, I've got those too.
Other than that, it's the building setback of 15 feet.
You need to
Starting
specify
track 2,
which
Larry.
property
When
line.
I get down there, I just need a little help, okay?
Can I offer what that might be? I've scribbled something out.
Go ahead.
Track 2 shall have a minimum setback for the building of 15 feet from the property line. And I think I'm emphasizing building because you're not saying the parking lot can't be closer or our regulations don't, but it's just for the building itself. So track 2 shall have a minimum setback for the building of 15 feet from the property line.
You need to specify which property line.
I'm sorry, yes, that would be the the west property line.
The property line between track 1 and 2.
Property line between track 1 and 2 would be very
That's
close.
west.
Yes.
The track 2 shall have a minimum setback from the west property line of 15 feet
For the buildings.
for the building. Okay. Okay, I think I got it. All right, here we go. Motion to approve docket OC 20-015, requesting a side yard setback variance of 25 feet. So the existing structure will be 10 feet from the proposed new side yard property line in order to establish tract 2 totaling 2.62 acres. This variance is required because existing parcel has a railroad spur on the north side. By allowing this side yard variance and creating the additional tract, the railroad spur have access to a new user. Complies with Oldham County Comprehensive Plan LU-1-3.1. Commercial properties in this area are being developed and developed in a similar manner as this proposal. Complies with Oldham County Comprehensive Plan LU 3-2-1. It will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. It will not alter the essential character of the I-2 zone of this vicinity. Potential conditions of approval. A minor plat and survey must be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of any building permits. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the November 19, 2020 Oldham County Board of Adjustments and public hearing. Tract 2 shall have a minimum west setback of 15 feet for the building. End of motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Fred. Any discussion? Bree, can I have a roll call vote, please?
All right, Mr. Hutchins,
All in favor?
Mr. Funk,
Ron, we didn't hear you.
Favor? Got it?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
Mr. Utterback,
In favor?
Mr. Riley,
In favor?
Mr. Burr.
In favor.
All right, the motion passes and the application's been approved.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
could we take a 10-minute break?
make a motion and we'll do it.
I'd like to make a motion that we take a 10-minute recess.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?